Can you please return Grandpa's pension book and bank book? You're using Grandpa's money without his permission, aren't you? I rescued my grandfather from my sister-in-law and brought him back to my home. She was taking his pension money. After this, my brother Alex and his wife Ashley would face a miserable end. My name is Mary. I'm a 32-year-old office worker, and I've been married to my husband Tom for 3 years. Tom and I live in his family home, but both of his parents have passed away. His father died before we got married, and his mother passed away last year. When I first moved in as his wife, his mom was in poor health and was hospitalized. For our wedding, we asked the hospital to grant her temporary leave and she was able to attend our ceremony. Afterward, she passed away peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. My husband is an only child, so losing his mother meant he lost all his immediate family, and he was quite depressed at that time. I had already lost both of my parents, but I have Alex, and our grandfather is still alive. Currently, my grandfather lives with Alex, so occasionally my husband and I visit my brother's house, and my husband happily chats with our grandfather. Although he is not a blood relative, my husband enjoys talking to my grandfather who values family. My grandfather is in his late 80s and is still physically healthy, but he has started to become forgetful. I keep hoping that he doesn't develop dementia. Sometimes, my grandfather suddenly starts talking about the past or brings up random topics, which makes me anxious, but my husband seems to find it amusing. Oh, the other day, while talking to my husband, my grandfather got angry, perhaps mistaking him for Alex.
You're making fun of me and being a terrible grandson.
My husband apologized, going along with my grandfather's story, but at some point, my grandfather realized his mistake and apologized to my husband.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're Mary's husband. Oh, I got it wrong.
My husband continued talking to my grandfather without taking it to heart, but I was concerned about the angry tone he used when talking about Alex. When I asked Alex directly, he got angry at me instead. You left me to take care of Grandpa, and now you're complaining. We never forced him to take care of our grandfather. After our parents passed away, he and his wife started living in our family home. Our grandfather had been living there before that, so they ended up living together. And everyone agreed without any complaints, which is why things are the way they are now. If anything, it seemed like Alex and Ashley wanted to live with our grandfather, and I thought everyone was on board with it, especially Ashley, who seems to care for our grandfather and tends to his needs whenever I visit. However, my husband always complains after observing her behavior.
Is she really taking good care of Grandpa? His clothes are dirty, and there's dust in the room.
My meticulous husband seems to observe every detail and suspects that she isn't taking proper care of our grandfather. She may appear to be well organized, but my husband seems to have labeled her as two-faced. He apparently saw her scolding Alex when we visited our family home during New Year's. Make sure you tell them not to come during New Year's so we can finally have some peace and quiet. She used a harsh tone when she scolded him. A tone that I couldn't imagine coming from her usually gentle expression. Actually, I had noticed her two-faced nature before. Yeah, last winter, when my grandfather caught a cold and was hospitalized for a week, I went to visit him in his hospital room. Since the curtain was closed, Ashley didn't realize I was there and started talking. I wish he would just pass away already. When she opened the curtain and saw me, she was so surprised that she jumped. She suddenly switched her tone to a sweet one and tried to change the subject, but I definitely heard her say that. However, we try to give them the benefit of the doubt, so when we visit my grandfather, we don't say anything bad about them. Since it's a small house, there's a high chance that they would overhear if my grandfather told us the truth. As I worried about my grandfather, my husband suggested an idea.
How about we install one of those pet monitoring cameras and see what's going on?
I was hesitant to install a camera, but for my grandfather's sake, we decided to set it up in a hidden spot the next time we visited him. We secretly installed the camera without telling my grandfather, and through the internet, we began to see Ashley's true colors at home. Alex and Ashley have a 5-year-old son, Justin, and it's heartbreaking to see such a young child treat my grandfather so poorly. When he comes home from kindergarten, he barges into my grandfather's room and starts yelling, "Hey, old man, I'm home now. Are you still alive? A 5-year-old using such foul language must be learning it from his parents. At this point, I wanted to go to my grandfather's place and scold my disrespectful nephew. But then Ashley came into my grandfather's room. The camera's resolution wasn't good enough to clearly see her expression, but she looked like a completely different person with a terrifying expression. As soon as she entered the room, she started yelling at my grandfather. I told you to do your own laundry, didn't I? Why haven't you done it yet, you slowpoke? My grandfather had told me that Ashley was doing his laundry, but it seemed like she was actually making him do it himself. My grandfather kept apologizing with his head bowed, but her anger didn't seem to subside, and she yelled again. As punishment, you'll do the laundry for the whole family tomorrow, and don't you dare mix your laundry with ours. My husband, who had been watching this footage with me, angrily said,
I didn't expect them to be this foul. Can we bring your grandpa to live with us? I can't stand it anymore.
I was happy to see my husband so upset on behalf of my grandfather. The horrible treatment of my grandfather by Ashley didn't end there. When dinner time came, only my grandfather's meal was brought to his room. She roughly placed the tray with the food on it and yelled again, Hurry up and finish your meal. Then bring the tray back to the kitchen. There seemed to only be rice and miso soup on the tray, with very little rice. Seeing my grandfather eating his meal alone in his room without even sharing a meal with the family made me want to cry. My husband and I went to my parents' house the next day and asked Alex, Can we take Grandpa with us? You said not to push his care onto you, right? Alex, seemingly overwhelmed by my determination, was about to agree to let us take our grandfather, but his wife intervened. No, that's not going to happen. He'll continue living here, in his own home. Why would she want to keep him here, even though she treated him like a nuisance? I couldn't understand her reasoning. When we went to ask my grandfather for his opinion, he looked like he was about to cry.
I can't take it anymore. I'm causing everyone to fight because of me.
My grandfather, who had heard our argument, realized that he was the cause of the fight and was devastated. I immediately told my grandfather, Grandpa, let's go to our house. We're leaving. I thought he would be happy, but he shook his head and refused, saying,
It would be too much trouble for you. I can't pay for my living expenses because my pension book and bank passbook have been taken away.
Finally, I understood why Ashley didn't want to let my grandfather go. She must want to keep him here so she can take his pension. But I won't allow that. I confronted her. Give back Grandpa's pension book and bank passbook. You've been using his money without his permission, haven't you? She usually had a gentle expression, but that day, she revealed her true colors and glared at me with a demonic face, retorting, I'm feeding him and doing housework for him, so I'm just using it as living expenses. It's not like I'm embezzling. That's a terrible thing to say. My husband showed her the secretly recorded video of my grandfather's room on his smartphone and began to speak.
It's despicable that you've been doing such horrible things to him. If we show this video to the city office or the police, you'll be in serious trouble.
Ashley suddenly became submissive, apparently affected by my husband's threat. Alex, who had been under Ashley's control until now, could not object since the video had been recorded, and he allowed us to take my grandfather home. Annoyed that she could no longer take my grandfather's pension, Ashley made a sarcastic comment as he packed up his belongings. Poor Grandpa. Now he'll have his pension taken by Mary. Until now, you admit that you're using Grandpa's pension, right? If that's true, I want you to return that money to Grandpa. I couldn't help but retort since she had admitted to taking Grandpa's pension for herself. Ashley, thinking she had failed, left without saying anything. My image-conscious brother begged my husband multiple times to delete the video. I planned on deleting the video anyway because it would affect Grandpa's reputation. I talked to Grandpa again. Grandpa, let's live together at our place. Let's move in right now. With tears in his eyes, Grandpa replied,
Thank you.
Once we got his pension book and bank book back, Grandpa immediately moved in with us. Grandpa, who had come to our house, looked completely different with a bright expression, His mind seemed clear and his forgetfulness was gone. While living with Alex and Ashley, he hardly ever went outside, but since coming to our house, he goes for walks every morning. Strangely enough, only good things have been happening since Grandpa came to our house. My husband got promoted at work, and I won a lottery that I always bought. The lottery win was not a big win, just $100. It was nothing more than a coincidence, but Grandpa was about to have even greater luck. Grandpa's brother, Patrick, who had been out of touch for more than 50 years, passed away, and Grandpa was to inherit his vast fortune. Patrick had succeeded in business but remained single for life, so he had no children, and the only surviving sibling was Grandpa. Grandpa, who was about to inherit around $2 million, remained calm, but I got completely carried away, thinking about what to buy and where to go on vacation. My husband, looking exasperated, said to me,
"It's not your money. Since it's the inheritance from your grandfather, we must leave its use up to him."
Hearing my husband's words, I began to calm down. But I was surprised when my grandfather announced he would donate his inheritance. According to him, Patrick had wanted to donate the inheritance, but since there was no official will, my grandfather inherited it all. Wanting to respect his brother's wishes, my grandfather decided to donate the entire sum. He chose to give it to the local government, and the large amount has become quite the topic in our town. The government even decided to hold a ceremony to express their gratitude. My grandfather had wanted to donate quietly, but local media caught wind of his donation and will be attending the ceremony. Now he's nervous to attend. On the day of the ceremony, both my husband and I had work, so we couldn't attend, but we encouraged my nervous grandfather before leaving. During lunchtime, I turned on the TV and saw the ceremony on the local news, with my visibly tense grandfather on screen. He was supposed to hand over the donation to the mayor and conclude the ceremony, but the venue seemed to be in an uproar. At that moment, a familiar man and woman appeared on screen, and I could hear the woman scream, "That $2 million is mine!" The broadcast cut off at that point, so I couldn't tell what happened, but the couple at the end looked very much like my brother and his wife. My coworker watching the news with me laughed, thinking it was a broadcasting accident, but I didn't laugh. I didn't know why they were there, nor should they have known about the inheritance. That afternoon, I worked restlessly, and when my shift finally ended, I hurried home to ask my grandfather what had happened. When I got home, he greeted me with a smile, as if nothing had happened, so I asked him right away, "Did Alex and Ashley go to the donation ceremony today?"
"Yeah, how did you know? They caused quite a commotion, and the venue was in chaos. Security escorted them out."
Seeing my grandfather laughing, as if it was someone else's problem, I couldn't help but laugh too. I thought that being escorted out by security would be enough to keep them quiet from now on. However, when my husband came home, he showed me his phone in a panic. On the internet, there was a clear picture of Alex and Ashley causing a scene at the donation ceremony. Their faces were blurred, but the headline read, "Grandchildren try to forcibly stop grandfather's donation." Since my grandfather's name was mentioned, it could only be me or Alex. Online, people had already concluded it was Alex and Ashley, and there were even photos of their faces and house. In just half a day, they were identified, making me realize the frightening power of the internet. The reason they found out about the donation was apparently because a lawyer visited their home, thinking my grandfather was living there. The lawyer was asking about my grandfather, not mentioning the inheritance, but when the media started covering the donation, they went to Alex's house and he found out about the $2 million inheritance. Alex had inherited our father's house and land, which didn't belong to my grandfather. Since my grandfather had little money, Ashley had been taking his pension, but when she found out he had $2 million, she tried to stop the donation and caused a scene. However, now they were labeled as a greedy couple trying to steal the money from their grandfather, so they faced criticism online and in real life. They had their faces and home exposed. They also faced criticism at work. It even became a topic at their son's kindergarten, and they were heavily criticized by other parents, causing them to leave the kindergarten. Ashley fled to her parents' house with their son, but her parents' house was soon identified as well. Alex was bad-mouthed by his colleagues at work and eventually resigned. Curious onlookers came to my parents' house and prank calls began to come in, so Alex sold the house and fled to his wife's parents' house. However, that house had already been identified, and Alex was scolded by his wife's parents and was not allowed to enter the house. Troubled, Alex contacted me, but I had no intention of helping him, since he treated our grandfather poorly and tried to steal $2 million. I told my crying brother over the phone, "You caused this situation. If you had taken good care of Grandpa from the beginning, none of this would have happened." I hung up after saying that. I haven't received any phone calls since then, and I don't know where he is or what he's doing now. Soon after they divorced, the money Alex got from the sale of the house went mostly to child support. Although Ashley received child support from her husband, her face became well known, and she was having trouble finding a job. Since she had been a housewife until now, she didn't have any particular qualifications, so it wasn't easy to find a job. After returning to her parents' house, she could no longer go out and seemed to be living in hiding. In contrast to Alex's family, which fell apart after a series of bad events after Grandpa left home, our family has had nothing but good things happen. After the inheritance issue with Grandpa was resolved, it was discovered that I was pregnant, and both my husband and Grandpa were overjoyed. Grandpa is exercising every day by taking walks so that he can live long enough to hold his great-grandchild. My husband joked that ever since Grandpa came to our house, good things have been happening.
They say that when a good luck charm enters a house, good things happen to that house. In our case, it might be Grandpa. That's why Alex's house declined after Grandpa left.
I responded to my husband's clever remark, "Grandpa is a good luck charm? That might be true indeed." And we laughed together.